This is Gunnar. How you doing? I'm outside here in the backyard, inside kind of this little stand here with a bunch of plants that we're growing. We've got the Italian oregano. We've got some tomatoes, herbs, and all kinds of such. I've got a topsy turvy right over here somewhere trying to grow peppers. I've already lost the habaneros though. I'm kind of bummed about that. And actually, quite frankly, I don't know when I watered them last. So anyway, I'll check on that later. But welcome to Aloha, Oregon. Many people like to call it Aloha, but it's Aloha, Oregon. And today we're going to be talking about the mindset of social media and talking specifically about how and why I use Twitter. And you know, where else nowadays can you have a span of several hours like I was able to have about a month or two ago, where I was able to have a dialogue, albeit maybe one or two tweets back and forth, with a comedian named Sinbad, the mayor of Portland, and local anchors from our number one newscast team at 10, all within just a few hours of time. Where else do you get that kind of access? Where else do you get a chance to engage into dialogue with people that you would never, ever have an opportunity to do that? Twitter is making that available to each and every one of us. And to many of us, though, it's pointless babble. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. Why am I spending time on Twitter? I don't care if someone's making toast. I don't care if someone's about to tie their shoe. I don't have time for that. It's a waste of time. There's a little bit of a perception there on that. And granted, there's a lot of pointless babble. But what I want to talk about today, just briefly, is and how and why I'm using Twitter, but also maybe share with you some of the latest news and stats about Twitter that might change that perception just a little bit. By all means, I'm not claiming to be a expert at Twitter. I'm not claiming that I know the only way to use it and how to use it. I'm just trying to apply a lot of my experiences on how I can use that in developing relationships. And one of the things that might surprise you with Twitter, for those of you that are new or still a little bit skeptical, is that some of the latest stats on Twitter show that it is the fastest growing search engine on the internet. Now, of course, Google is the top, but this is the fastest growing search engine. Last year, this time, we were talking about Bing. But with Twitter, the search queries on a daily basis have reached 800 million per day. That's 24 billion on a monthly basis. That's more than Yahoo and Bing combined. 33% increase over the last year. So there are a lot of searches happening on Twitter each day, obviously 800 million of them per day. And so it's not just about pointless babble. There's a lot of great information being passed around, and that's part of why I like to use it. But before we jump in on how I like to use it and sharing that little bit of a nugget with you, I've got some notes here I'm looking at from a recent survey that had occurred over the last year or so using Twitter, where it was from Paranalytics. Paranalytics is down in San Antonio. They took 2,000 tweets over a 2-week period of time. They broke them down into category on how people are using Twitter. And it's really interesting. Some of the categories they have, see their little pie chart there. Yeah, how about that, huh? Right there. I'm gonna be reading right off of that. But the categories were news. People were using it for news. Spam. Anywhere we go now, we seem to see spam, don't we? It's everywhere. That's why we jumped off of email. Well, we still use email. I still use email. But let's face it, 90% of the email is spam. I can look at my junk mailbox and it's just loaded. You've got self promotion. A lot of self promotion going on Twitter. Great way if you use it right and it's balanced in your approach to drive people to your sites, your blogs, or what have you. But you got to be balanced. It's like the 80-20 rule we talk about, where 80% of your messaging should be relational, 20% should be informational. I think if you flip that, you're going to have a one-way ticket to being unfollowed. Or unfriended, as we say on Facebook. 2009 New Oxford American Dictionary of the Year is unfriend. And so you want to have that balance on the self-promotion side of it. Pointless babble, of course. It's got to be a category on there. Conversational, which is great. That's what it's all about. Social media is a dialogue, not a monologue. and we need to treat it as such. And then the pass along value was the other side of the tweets that were being used, and pass along value being, kind of like forwarding a message on email or sharing a message on Facebook. We want to retweet that message to our followers that are following us. And so, interesting findings. Of course, the top category of people using Twitter was pointless babble. But from the stats that I shared earlier, with being the fastest growing, search engine, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, and then perhaps what our perception is. And if you have a list of folks that you're following, there is a lot of great information that can be had. For me personally, what I do with all that is, I use Twitter because I like to network. I want to network with people. Matter of fact, I went to a convention, a conference about a year ago, and I met a lot of people there through Twitter. Let's have a tweet up. When we networked, we've collaborated, and we found each other on the convention floor, and we started, had great dialogue. And so we did a lot of networking. Or sometimes you're kind of looking at someone from afar, and you're like, man, they look like that profile pic that I've seen. I wonder if that's them. And so, I mean, definitely networking. I like to use Twitter because I like to share ideas. Maybe here's something that I'm thinking about, or maybe there's an idea that someone else is on there, and I like to share my ideas and share other people's ideas and collaborate. I'm a news junkie. I love the news. I remember being on Twitter the night the earthquake happened in Italy. It was like midnight here in the Pacific time zone, and it wasn't even on the news yet. But people were tweeting out of Italy saying, "Here's what's going on," or the Iranian Revolution. It was the only way things were getting out of the news, out of the country during the revolution last year, after the election, was through Twitter. And so people are breaking news every second, and so it's fascinating to know what's going on around you in your community, what's going on around the world, and following those different news outlets to get your news. And so I'm keeping up to date on that. I follow a lot of people on Twitter because I like to get inspired. Whether it's Gary Vaynerchuk, who wrote "Crush It" under Gary VEE, or Rick Warren, and folks like that have got some really great dialogue happening on their Twitter feed, where they'll throw out a quote or a statement or a link, and it just makes you just want to think, whoa, that I got to stop for a second and pause on that, maybe marinate on that thought a little bit and get inspired. So I use Twitter to get inspired. I love to learn. With there being 800 million search queries happening a day on Twitter, you can only imagine how much information is being shared on the latest technology, or the latest discussions on any topic you can think of. I mean, I can just sit here and favorite tweets all day long, or if I see something I wanted to read right then, I will. And you can just learn a wealth of information about anything on Twitter. It's absolutely phenomenal, dialogue. I like to use Twitter to dialogue with others. Our top news team at 10 on TV here in the Portland area is on Twitter, and during their live broadcast of the news, they are tweeting with the community and their followers while they're on air. It's absolutely crazy. And so I'm communicating with their community. We're talking about a story. We're talking about an upcoming story, or what they're talking about off the air, and it's crazy. I mean, I'm meeting people that way, and we're communicating, we're networking, and we're engaged in dialogue, and we're engaged in the community. And so, breaking that down, I like to network. I like to use Twitter to share ideas, to get news, to get inspired, to learn, to dialogue, and engage the community. And of course, absolutely, I use Twitter to drive awareness to my latest blog, or pages and things that are important to me, and to help pass the information along from other organizations and places and causes that I support. And so Twitter is a great place to be. It's not just about the pointless babble. It's everything that you make it to be, and so you determine your course.